So what does the C-suite's playbook for 2026 actually look like? Well, we've dug into a massive global survey of over 1,500 executives to find out. And what we discovered is a really interesting paradox. On one hand, leaders are incredibly optimistic about growth. But on the other, they're staring down a brand new landscape of risks that's keeping them up at night. So, let's jump in.
This quote from the report pretty much sets the stage for everything. In a world that's changing this fast, the greatest danger isn't making the wrong move, it's standing still. That's the mindset driving the entire C-suite as they look to the future. Inaction is the real gamble.
Okay, so check this out. Despite all the headlines about uncertainty, nearly 7 out of 10 executives are optimistic about growing their revenue. That's a really powerful statement. So you have to ask, right? Where do they think all that growth is actually going to come from?
All right, so let's start with that surprisingly optimistic outlook. What is it that's making these leaders so confident about betting on growth when things feel so uncertain?
Well, it turns out it's not just blind optimism. When you ask, where is the growth? Executives have a really clear 3-part plan for how they're going to expand.
And here is that plan. First, that core belief in growing revenue. But take a look at the second priority, ecosystem development. At 62%, leaders are focusing hard on building strategic alliances and partnerships. They get that they can't innovate or expand in a vacuum anymore. And finally, you've got geographic expansion. They're still looking to grow globally, but maybe just a little more cautiously.
Now, there's one single factor that's woven into every single one of those growth plans, and that's artificial intelligence. This is where our story really pivots, because AI is seen as the ultimate key to unlocking opportunity, but it's also opening a Pandora's box of brand new risks.
And this lays out the AI paradox perfectly. On one hand, you have the promise, a truly transformative growth driver. But on the other, you have the peril. It's a complex challenge that brings major security fears right to the forefront. The thing is, you just can't have one without the other.
So what are leaders actually doing about it? Well, they're focused on 3 huge challenges. It's a dead heat for first place between security and integration. They're basically asking, how do we protect our data, and how do we make this tech actually work with our existing systems? And right behind that is the talent question. Do we even have the right people to use these tools effectively? It all comes down to execution.
Now, let's zoom out a bit from AI and look at the entire risk landscape. This is the other side of the coin from all that optimism we started with. What are the top threats these execs are really seeing on the horizon?
This table tells a fascinating story. Economic conditions, which was last year's #1 fear, has dropped all the way to 5th place. Meanwhile, things like third-party risks and legacy IT operations have just skyrocketed up the list. And that's no coincidence. It's a direct result of that big push for AI and all those new partnerships. But there's one clear winner, or maybe loser, at the top.
Yep. For 2026, the undisputed #1 global risk keeping leaders up at night is cyber threats. It is officially taken over from economic concerns as the top-of-mind danger for organizations all over the world. Because every new opportunity, especially with AI, creates a new vulnerability.
But remember that quote from the beginning? Doing nothing is the biggest risk? So the response to this high-threat environment isn't to retreat. It's to invest strategically, to actually turn these challenges into a source of competitive advantage.
And leaders are absolutely putting their money where their risk is. The top investment priority, by a long shot, is cybersecurity, a direct response to that #1 threat. And that's followed by improving business processes and modernizing infrastructure, which are both essential for integrating new tech, like AI, and defending against new threats. So let's bring it all together. Here's your executive briefing for 2026. First, optimism for growth is strong. Second, AI is the central paradox. It's the engine for that growth, but also a primary source of risk. Third, cybersecurity is the undisputed king of both risk and investment. And finally, the core strategy is crystal clear. Don't hide from uncertainty, invest your way through it. Which leaves us with the ultimate question for the next few years. In a world where AI is both the key that unlocks growth and the lock that's supposed to secure the enterprise, how will leaders balance that frantic race for innovation with the absolute necessity of staying secure? That's the tightrope everyone is going to be walking.